Hi, and welcome to this special event for dental practice owners and dentists and overall the oral health professionals. I'm Praveen Gautam. I help entrepreneurs and enterprises to build their digital brand and monetize it. Today, I'm very excited and to have a special guest and a founder of MW Partners, specialized dental accountants, my good friend Albert Geigel. One of the things I know about our dental community is asking right now is confusion about Jobkeeper 2.0 and what it means really for them. So we will cover up in next 30 minutes or so about Jobkeeper 2.0. And by the way, if you are watching this from any of the channels from Facebook, social medias, in Instagram, YouTube, or any of the channels, give us a thumbs up or comments, or feel free to like and share this post. And by the way, if you are a dentist, dental professionals, or dentist or dental practice owner, and you have a specific accounting questions, feel free to ask to Albert or myself. Wonderful to have you today, Albert.
Thanks, Praveen. Thanks for inviting me to talk.
That's great. Mate, look, interesting time, obviously, what we are going through. And it's very hard for dental, most likely all the healthcare professionals and also for our dentists. So today, to make that, to help them to navigate this, let's get a little bit deeper, and I will share the screen for you. And let's get started. Yeah.
Yep.
So would you like to give a quick rundown what you're going to cover up today?
Yes. Look, in particular with what's happened in Victoria today, I think the important thing is to remain flexible and remain aware of what's going on. So what I'm really going to do is look at Jobkeeper, the original one, and what is going to be the continuing payments that are going to occur right up until the end of September. Then I'm going to run through Jobkeeper 2.0, which was announced last week. Then a little bit on business planning and payroll and how that relates, and then some tips and strategies. And then hopefully we've left plenty of time at the end for questions, which you can send through on the chat box. And we're certainly more than happy to look at those. So that's the plan for the day.
Thank you, Albert. That's great. So let's get started, mate. Beauty.
Okay. As with everything financial, we need to advise you that this information that is provided is general in nature, may not relate to your specific circumstances, and most likely subject to change, probably hourly, as new announcements are being made. So on the next slide, I'm going through the stimulus package cash boost. So back when it all started, there was the provision for a $20,000 to $100,000 tax-free amount. Most of the dental practices most certainly will have applied for that now and will have received somewhere between $10,000 and $50,000. They must have paid a wage that's subject to pay-as-you-go withholding, but they did not need to show a downturn in business. So if there's any dentist out there that does have a business that didn't get the cash boost, then it's not too late. You can still apply. The next payment is due on the lodgement of your June BAS, and it will be 50% of what you originally got back in March. And then when you lodge your September BAS, you'll get the other 50% of what you received in March. Again, these amounts are not a cash refund. They are offset against your liability on the BAS first, and then it's only any residual amount that is refunded to you. So I've got a number of dentists that, looking at this, said, "Well, I just didn't receive any of that cash boost. What's going on?" And didn't realise that their normal liability on their BAS had been, taken care of, and they'd paid a much lower amount. Now, if you were a monthly lodger, and I apologise for the typo at the bottom of the slide there. That reads quarterly lodgers. It should be monthly. If you're a monthly lodger, then you'll receive 25% of your second half payment in each of the months June, July, August, and September. So you'll get a quarter in each one of those 4 months, and then you can go on from there. So now the next bit that I'm going to look at is the Jobkeeper package. Now that's the one that's in existence now, that everyone is eligible for, provided they were up to date with their tax returns and they did have a 30% decrease in projected GST income for any month from March through to September. And if they went on a quarterly basis, then it's either for the June quarter or the September quarter. So as long as you found something that you could comply with to show a 30% decrease, and by the time the package had been announced, we were already partway into April, so most dentists didn't have much trouble in either providing an exact figure for March, which was 30% down, or they knew they were 3 weeks into April and there was no way they were going to get even to about 20% of what their normal production was, because most of them were closed down at that stage. The comparison was directly from March of 2020 back to March of 2019, and there were some ATO discretions for unusual circumstances, such as dentists that had purchased a new practice, hadn't been operating for that long, had started from scratch, those type of things. As we currently stand, the Jobkeeper 1.0 package doesn't need you to retest. And all you need to do to continue to get your money is to make sure you keep paying everybody a minimum of $1,500 per fortnight, and that you complete a month-end, an actual for the month that you're in, and an estimate for the following month within 14 days of the next month. So currently we're right at the end of July. So between the 1st of August and the 14th of August, you need to advise the ATO of what your July figure actually was and what you expect your August figure to be. Just a reminder that an ABN contracting dentist is a sole trader, and that dentists operating through a company or trust and not drawing any salary or commission can claim a single JobKeeper amount for themselves. You must complete a business participation nomination notice, and that will get you through if you didn't apply anywhere else. This only created a real problem for partnership dental practices, because only one of the partners, even though both dentists worked equally in there, were able to get it. So I've also, on the next slide, reproduced the schedule of payments, more for interest than anything else, just to keep everyone abreast. So we're now running, or we've now completed our July payments. So that's everything up to the 19th of July was the finishing fortnight for that month. So you'll receive your $3,000 somewhere between the 1st of August and the 14th of August, and most likely closer to the 14th of August when you get that money. The next fortnight actually finishes this Sunday on the 2nd of August, and because of that, we will actually have 3 fortnights within the August month, and therefore when you go to get your payment in September, you'll actually get $4,500. So that will end up being, a bit more of a boost and a catch up for the payments that have been made to date. Now on to next slide, where we're looking at Jobkeeper 2.0. So This is through the three columns that I've got there. The current situation is, irrespective of whether you were part-time, casual, or full-time, everyone got the $1,500 per fortnight, and will continue to do so right up until the 27th of September 2020. I've also slotted in there the Jobkeeper, which is the unemployment benefits through Centrelink, and the coronavirus supplement there is currently at $550. So it brought the normal unemployment benefits up to a bit over $1,100. Obviously a bit more for those people with single dependent children and renting assistance and everything else, but generally brought it up from $550 to around the $1,100 mark. Going forward from the job seeker point of view, that drops down to just $250 after September, and then we're unsure what's going to happen after December of this year with respect to the job seeker. I think the government is trying to find out how many people drop off the Jobkeeper and get onto the unemployment queues to determine how to best handle the large unemployment rate that we're going to have going forward. So after the 28th of September, for the next 3 months, the eligible employees that are working less than 20 hours a week will receive $750, and those working more than 20 hours a week will get $1,200. The determination of whether they're working 20 hours a week, more or less, is based on the average hours that they worked for each of the 4 weeks in February 2020 this year. And it must be with the employer that they are currently claiming the Jobkeeper from. Now, some employees, because they were working part-time and worked at numerous dental surgeries, selected one that they felt most comfortable with, which may not have necessarily been the one they worked the most hours at. So now, unfortunately, they're stuck with the one that they've chosen and need to continue on with that one. There quite possibly will be some anomalies with respect to dental practices potentially being closed during that month or on annual leave, or employees being on annual leave, or some surgeries where they were affected and in the fire zones that were on at that time and may not have been open fully or in fact closed. The tax officer said that they will in fact look at that, but they have not yet provided the discretionary requirements. Business participants, those ones that claimed under that method, will have to claim Jobkeeper based on the same hourly test. But at this stage, we've got no guidelines as to how they're going to determine how an unpaid person involved with the business is going to determine their number of hours that they worked back in February. The best indication that we've got is the number of hours that they would normally be actively engaged in the business. So if there was a selection for a really part-time working spouse that wasn't paid a wage but was just doing some of the bookkeeping or other work, then most likely you're only going to be arguing for a less than 20 hours a week position for that business participant. Over onto the next slide, a few of the other details. Okay, the employer needs to be eligible, and they are eligible based on a 30% reduction in both the June and September quarters. Your June quarter 2020 is compared with your June quarter 2019, and your September quarter 2020 is compared to your September 2019. Now, the important bit here is that some dental practices, even though they were almost closed during the month of April, had reasonable May and had a potentially very good June, because there were a lot of patients coming back out and seeking to recommence their dental treatment that they'd missed during the lockdown. So from the clients I've got that I look after, we've found that probably only half of them think that they will have a 30% reduction across the quarter of June. Now, if you don't meet the eligibility requirements in June, i.e. you only have a 18% reduction, you're out of the system. You can't catch up in September. You have to be below 30% production in both the June and September quarters. What this does mean is that it is probably advisable at this stage, if you know you're not passing the test for Jobkeeper because of your June quarter, that you might wish to advise your employees that you will not be eligible to get Jobkeeper past the end of September, so that we can make some plans going forward. We are still waiting on the legislation, but it is pleasing to note that if you do pass the June and September quarters, there is no more monthly testing or estimating or other reporting. You'll be in for that next quarter. Once you get through to the 31st of December, or actually the 3rd of January, you then also need to pass a 30% reduction in the December quarter to continue on with Jobkeeper at the lower level. Now, the reduction is on your GST income as it was reported in your BAS. Now, this may cause an issue with some clients who may have been reporting BAS or reporting their BAS or income through a service entity and change the way or their method of operation partway through the year. So they may in fact find that it's not the straight comparison. They've got grossed up figures that aren't supported by their BAS. In any case, it's something that you need to discuss with your accountant if you feel that the rules aren't quite relevant to you. Now, I was just wondering at this stage, Prabin, whether you've got any questions or anything may have come through from anyone regarding Jobkeeper 2.0.
Thanks, Albert. That really gives a quick heads up, and I see a number of our clientele and obviously community have sent different questions. I'm just going through it at the moment. Now, but obviously we have got a Q&A at the end session, but just one question particularly is, how does the tax office know if the employee is over and under 20 hours per week? I think that's a great question. Thank you. So please, could you, Albert, could you please give a quick heads up?
Okay. Yes. Well, actually, I was going to say the ATO knows everything about us, but given that they won't be able to identify which employees are going to get the $750 amount, or which ones are going to get the $1,200 amount, just by looking through the payroll, because obviously some people may have worked more or less actual hours and be paid more or less than those amounts. So you actually need to advise the tax office of each employee as to whether they're a below or above 20 hours. And I believe that will probably be done through your single touch payroll software, whether you're using Mile or Xero or whatever software you're using to currently report I believe there'll probably be a tag built in by the time we get to October that can go in there. So hopefully that's there. I can see there's another question there on the chat thing, which I'll have a look.
Please.
The question is, can I confirm that if the 30% reduction is based on GST income, then
Yes.
the Jobkeeper 1.0 payment is not included as income for the calculation? Excellent question. That is absolutely correct. The Jobkeeper money that you receive from the government, okay, is not GST based income, because it's not in the course of your normal business income. So it is in fact excluded. Okay, well,
Beautiful. Thank you, Albert. That's a great. So let's get to the second segment. I hope that given very clear to our audience,
yeah,
to our viewers and listeners about Jobkeeper 2.0. And obviously, if you have any further question, feel free to just email to Alison at mwpartners.com.au, and definitely Alison will pass that to Albert and his team. That's great. By the way, guys, if you're just tuning in, I'm with Albert Geigel, who is a founder of MW Partners. And we're talking about discover what's behind the mask of Jobkeeper 2.0. And I understand, obviously dentists are very busy, and there's so many confusion going on at the moment. So our aim is to give that clarity, and that's where my good friend Albert is here to give about Jobkeeper 2.0. So next segment, Albert, if that's okay, let's talk a little bit about a business support grant. And I hope it's only for Victoria, or do we have for other states as well?
No, and this is specifically because of the issues that Victoria are
Okay.
facing. So it only applies to Victoria.
Okay.
It may apply in other states, potentially New South Wales.
Yes.
Next, and if the two teenage girls that ran around Brisbane caused a lot of damage, then maybe unfortunately that's going to be an issue in Queensland as well. So it's sad that those sort of things are happening.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying their best to keep things under control.
Totally, and government is giving that support, definitely, Mike. So would you like to tell a little bit about that to our viewers, please?
Yeah. Okay. So the support grant it's a one-off $5,000 grant, similar to the $10,000 one that we had, only that it is specifically to metropolitan Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire area. Now, there's always a possibility that may expand out a bit further. So if you're outside of those areas, just keep across the issue and see whether it expands any further. And to comply, the business is either restricted in their operation or can no longer operate under the stay-at-home restrictions. Dental businesses will certainly comply with that. They are restricted in their operations, and I've already had dentists that have been successful in gaining the grant. So there is no exclusion on you're not in the right industry type thing. It's specifically on businesses that are in those postcodes. The applications actually close 19th of August, so just a little under 3 weeks from now, and your application's online on the Business Victoria website. You must meet all of the criteria that are listed there. So basically, you operate a business that's in that area. You're a participant in the Jobkeeper scheme. You do, in fact, employ people. You're registered with WorkSafe. You've got a payroll of less than $3 million in 2019. And I don't think I've got anyone that's over that mark. And if they are, they may be what's called an ungrouped basis. So different surgeries would be separated. Be registered for GST at the 30th of June and have an ABN. They're a little bit silly, some of those, because you wouldn't be able to employ people without an ABN, and you may not necessarily be registered for GST, but if your income's below $75,000, then it's a fairly small fairly small business. Okay, the original $10,000 grant and the second $5,000 grant, it should be noted they are not tax-free payments, so they're not the same as the JobKeeper as the cash flow boost. So I can see, I think I've got another question there, Pravin, and if you've got anything that's come through at your end regarding the business support grant, then you can let us know. While you're having a look, I'll look at the question I've got. What happens if the business commenced after August? So a 2019 comparison is, I presume, the 2019 comparison is unavailable. If that's the case, we'll need to apply effectively separately and request the Commissioner's discretion for those circumstances. So it may be that if the business has been purchased, it's a swap over, that we can obtain figures from the previous business, which usually would be supplied as part of the sale process and valuation, and say that the business was in fact doing those sort of dollars in the prior period, or perhaps an average of the turnover that has occurred from commencement of the business through to hopefully maybe a 6-month period, and go, that's the average that we've got for that 6 months, and it's representative of what we would normally do. And then post-COVID, we're only doing this amount on a quarterly basis. So it will be subject to the Commissioner's discretion for that particular case.
Beautiful. Thank you, Albert. I hope that gives you a bit of insight. I can see that's from Dr. Amit Sharma. So Amit, I hope that's give you a bit of clarity there, but feel free to, again, if you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to Alison. And thank you to Dr. Adrian Lim. Yeah, I hope that is also addressed properly from Albert. So that's great, Albert. I also received another questions right here, which is in regard to business support grant. That is, I heard a lot of dentists missed out on first 10,000. Certainly there's a lot of dentists have missed out. Is there anything they can do? Would you like to quickly address that?
Look, this has been an issue, and that has been the case for a number of our clients as well. So the circumstances are that some dentists applied prior to the industry threshold being expanded to include healthcare, and when they then got back in touch with the Business Vic, they found that they get back in touch with you, they process it, and then nothing happened. In my view, I think that a number of the cases that they were inundated and they fell into a black hole, if that's the right way to put it. There was also some confusion with respect to ABN numbers and whether it related to the business that was registered, or that the industry code, in fact, was not correct or didn't line up with the ABN registration. Those issues also caused some dentists to miss out. Now, I have recently spoken with the ADAVB, and they've actually put a submission on behalf of their members to the Minister or Ministry of Health, outlining the problems that they've seen, and asked whether any action can be taken, and preempting what was likely or may possibly happen again with this $5,000 grant, stated in clear terms that the dentists have been restricted in the way that they can operate. They would meet all the classification criteria, and therefore they should be entitled to get the grant. The only thing you can do with the original $10,000 grant is either sit and hope and maybe something will come through from the Australian Dental Association, and the other bit would be to take action or plead your case to the ombudsman. But the situation is that it is in fact a grant, so it's not a guaranteed. Even if you meet all the criteria, it's a bit like applying for a research and development grant. You can apply if you meet all the criteria. It's still up to the state government body or municipal body to provide that grant and have you as a successful recipient. It's just that in this case, this is the first time most people have been involved with grants, that they have just dealt with it the same way they dealt with every other incentive package from COVID. So I think the dollars may have gone if you're, if you've missed your $10,000, which is quite disappointing. And the best that I can say with the $5,000 one is get your application in immediately. If you receive a response that says it's rejected, then pursue it relentlessly. Don't wait for someone to get back. You should have a reference number with respect to that claim. So use that reference number. You can usually get a reference number or something with respect to phone calls that you may have made. So make sure you keep those to chase that $5,000 grant. So there.
Thank you, Albert. I hope that's given a bit of clarity to these questions, and we are getting a number of questions right now. I'm just reading as we speak, and I think that's very similar. I think you have already addressed to one of the dental practice. I think Upway Dental. So what is the difference between version 1 and version 2? Is there anything you can quickly say on?
Just respect. With that, version 2 does not have the healthcare requirement in there, so it's open to anybody. Any industry will allow you to get that. You just have to have the business location in those hotspot postcodes, and then everything else is substantially the same. There is also documents and other things that you need to provide to prove that that's the way that you're operating.
Beautiful. Thank you, Albert. I hope the team from Upway Dental, I hope that the answer has been helpful for you. But as Albert says, feel free to get the reference number and obviously follow that up. So let's. I'm conscious with the time. A couple of more things, and there's a lot of questions coming up. Yep. The grant is very much in demand. Everyone obviously hard time. Everyone wants to find out the different ways so that they can get a support for their business, for their staff. So let's get to a third segment, Albert, if that's okay. So That's all about business planning and payroll. So if you could shed a little bit of lights on that would be great.
Yep, absolutely. So this is probably the key area because it ties in with Jobkeeper and the way dentists operate their business. I did run through this in previous webinars, but there was a court case recently in the full federal court where a casual employee was deemed to be incorrectly classified as casual, and therefore they could claim back payments or arrears for annual leave, sick leave, and public holidays. And even though they were more than happy to accept the pay rate that was 25% higher than the standard hourly rate, they didn't have to repay that amount, and they were still entitled to get their annual leave, sick leave, and public holidays. So it just identifies the importance of correctly identifying and categorising the employees that work for you. I know in a number of cases, casual employers prefer to have people on as casual because it offers a lot more flexibility with respect to working conditions and saves the hassle of actually calculating and administering annual leave and sick leave and all of those type of things. And on other occasions, I get the circumstance where the employee goes, no, just make me casual. I'd rather have the additional money and I'll look after my own annual leave when it comes there. It needs to be tied in with the work that they're actually doing and the terms and conditions of their employment. Now, when Jobkeeper first started, there were changes to the Fair Work Act that allowed employers to give directions to employees to change the duties that may be performed, the location where the work is performed, and the number of hours to be worked. Obviously, the most important out of that was the number of hours, because if the clinic's closed or if there aren't as many patients, that type of thing, it was important to be able to vary the number of hours for the staff. Now, those directions must be reasonable in the circumstances. So you can't go sending them off to the practice you've got in Mildura, and you need to provide the notice in writing, and it must be with 3 days notice, and you must also have a consultation with the employee. And some of the circumstances were that employees were able to keep working in their normal number of hours, but potentially some of those were taken as annual leave rather than actually worked, and some of them were obviously then compensated with the Jobkeeper payments. Going to the next slide, the COVID, these changes for giving directions will actually cease on the 27th of September. So when the Jobkeeper 1.0 finishes, the legislation all goes back to its normal, what it was before. So if you think that you might need to make staff redundant, then you really must act before this date. Otherwise, the preconditions will apply. One of the issues that has come up is that some casual workers who may only work a day or two a week were refusing to come back to work. They were getting Jobkeeper, they were getting more dollars than what they were normally going to be paid, but even then they weren't prepared to come back and do work. And the situation is that if they are in fact a casual employee, it's up to the boss to offer hours and say, could you work on Thursday or could you work on Friday for half a day? Because that's the nature of casual employment. It's as and when it comes up. But the employee, under those circumstances, has got the right to accept or reject any of the shifts coming forward. So under COVID, they're perfectly within their rights to go, no, I'm rejecting that shift. So if they continue to reject those shifts that are being offered, it would then be something that you'd need to take the right course of action if you thought that it was most appropriate to terminate that employee. So the other thing is, as I mentioned before, if the income on your June quarterly BAS hasn't fallen by 30%, then you're not going to meet the requirements for Jobkeeper 2.0. So you really should advise all employees as soon as possible that it's most likely that you won't qualify for Jobkeeper 2.0. I say most likely because given what we saw today in Victoria and whether things really escalate, we could find things closed down a lot harder. And if dental practices are closed during the month of August and September, they would have a serious fall in their income for that quarter, and it most likely would be inequitable for a practice to have maybe had a 25 or 26% downfall in the June quarter and therefore fail that quarter, to not then be entitled to having suffered a significant fall afterwards. But that's really up to the Commissioner's discretion. But the way it stands now, if you don't meet the June quarter 30% decrease, you're not getting JobKeeper 2.0, and you should really advise your staff. As with everything in the HR area, before you do terminate, make redundant, change people's job description and everything else, you should check with a HR specialist. You really want to avoid any unfair dismissal claims and the like. There's also, and this is something that people may not have been aware of, that the temporary occupational health and safety COVID-19 incidental notification regulations for 2020, an employer is required to notify WorkSafe where an employee or a contractor has attended the workplace 14 days prior to a confirmed positive diagnosis. So if someone working there is not feeling well, they take a day off sick, and they then go and get tested because that's the right thing to do, and they come back to you and say, look, I can't come back to work. I've got a positive result for coronavirus. You then need to advise WorkSafe, and that's because they will have worked for you at some time in that previous 14 days. So obviously then the other workers will need to get tested and the place cleaned and all of those type of things. I think that's probably close to where I'm at the payroll side.
Thank you, Albert. That was very insightful. Actually, I mean, there's many. There's pretty in-depth and things. And while you're telling this, there's a lot of information. And obviously, as a dentist or dental practice owner, you're already busy. So, and things are changing quite rapidly, isn't it?
Oh yeah, look, it really is, and it's almost like the new norm, or new normal. That governments, our leaders, everybody needs to make decisions on the run, just subject to how the virus is spreading through the community. Even though there's a lot of things being done on a state-by-state basis, that overall, not only is it for the benefit of each individual state, but it's for the benefit of all Australians. That if we've got areas that are isolated and COVID-free, then we should do everything that we can to ensure that they stay COVID-free, because we can see the damage that gets done once it gets out of hand.
Absolutely, and it is pretty serious, and I think all our viewers or listeners who is watching this, wherever the states, we want to do as the best as we can and support in every way, because obviously healthcare workers, all these, the defense and all those whole peoples are working so hard. So it's just a matter of taking that responsibility and being socially responsible, for sure. Now, I understand we are going out of the time, and would you like to give a couple of quick tips and strategies? And by the way, guys, look, if you have just tuned in, I am with Albert Geigel from MW Accountants, dental accountant, specialized accountant, and we are talking about discover what's behind Jobkeeper 2.0. And if you could just give some tips and strategies, those viewers who are just logging in now, or if they want to know more, would you like to give that quick heads up to them, please?
Yeah, absolutely. We got the hot tips coming up right now. So just quickly, we've still got the instant asset write-off there up to $150,000, and that has now been extended right through to 31st of December 2020. So those that still do need to do renovations or purchase major equipment, you're going to get the tax deduction for that. At the same time, or continuing on, we've got accelerated depreciation of new assets. So even though it's not a 100% write-off, it is in fact a 50% write-off, and then the balance just depreciated under the normal rules. The access to the $10,000 in super, and you can take 2 lots of 10 grand. You had to take the first 10 grand out before the 30th of June, and the second lot needed to come out by September, but they've now extended the second $10,000 withdrawal through to the 31st of December 2020. The amount is tax-free from your super fund, and you must have your working hours or wage reduced by 20% or more. I believe, again, they've extended this because they believe there may be significantly more people in financial strife after the Jobkeeper ends and may really need to draw on their super just to get by. You do apply individually online through the MyGov app. The payroll tax in Victoria for last year was reversed in full, or not charged, and the next 6 months the payment is deferred until after the 1st of January. The ATO for tax returns and the like, the ATO hit list for working from home, which is on the next slide, means that they're going to be looking at less or a lower claim for laundry of uniform, because just like me, I'm not wearing a uniform at home, or quite often my suit, and if you're working less at the surgery, you're more likely to have a lower laundry cost. They'll obviously also look for more home office type expenses for that later period of the year when COVID was in place for those people that are working from home. Also potentially more stationery or computer costs or other things to set up the home office. And again, they're going to be looking to see less motor vehicle travel, because people haven't been and aren't driving around for work purposes as much as they were before, and quite frankly, in a lot of cases, are prohibited from doing so. Your 2020 tax return is probably one that you really want to get done as soon as possible. And in fact, the tax office system crashed on the 1st of July, being inundated with individuals who wanted to have their tax return lodged and get their refund as soon as possible. The recommendation from the tax office is to wait until after the 14th of August, so that all the data that they collect is there on your MyGov account, so that your tax return can be prepared sooner. You may have noticed that you don't get a group certificate or wage summary anymore. It's put online directly through the tax office once the employer has advised that all of their wage summaries are now finalised and ready to put on the system. However, this is the first year that the single touch payroll is being used, so a lot of employers are uncertain about that process. So tax office have extended out the period of time for which employers, particularly with less than 20 employees, can lodge, and that's up to the 31st of July. But I would be surprised if the tax office was penalising employers that ran a bit over that mark. And also that's the reason why people should hold back actually lodging their tax return. By all means, draft it or have it prepared if you're doing it yourself, but not to lodge maybe until towards the end of August, just to ensure everything's there. We don't have to go back in and do an amendment. Lastly, the tax audit insurance is highly recommended. If you don't have it or your accountant doesn't provide it, you should potentially, if you're a business, look at getting tax audit insurance, because there will be a high level of tax audit activity with respect to Jobkeeper and other claims during this period. And really, it's not to penalise people; it's to ensure that everyone's making a fair claim on the system, and that everything's been done above board. On the next slide, which is one just to finish off towards question time. All participants tonight can apply for a free risk diagnostic on their business. You just need to email your request to Alison, and she will send you a link so that you can complete the online questionnaire. It's about 25 questions, and then you'll receive a business performance indicator report and a SWOT analysis. If the report raises any concerns for you, then you can register for our business workshops to go over those results and then develop a personalised action plan to help your business forward through these difficult times. So if you jot down that email address and send through a request, we'll get that link out to you, and that's completely free to get that report.
Thank you, Albert. That was a great insight. I mean, there's no doubt, you're so passionate on helping dentists to brilliantly, turn them into a business people. And obviously, this is a uncertain times, very unpredictable. So, and helping that, giving that advice, I really thank you. So, guys and girls, look, if you are watching this right now, we cover up Jobkeeper 2.0. Albert has shared about who is eligible on business support, especially focusing on Victoria and the region, and there might be other possibilities in other states as well. So just so they can get all the informations or any latest update on the ATO, probably, Albert?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. It pays to try and keep abreast of it. The ATO site is usually pretty good to run through, and their explanations, particularly with some examples, are often very good to look at, because sometimes you can find something that's similar to the circumstances that you're going through, and there's often links on there too that will go through to something like where the commissioner will exercise discretion because your circumstances are unusual. So it's good to keep going through that through those sites. And again, with the grants, it's really something to be persistent with, and keep following up.
Beautiful. And obviously we have deal with business planning and payroll and all those tips and strategies, what Albert has shared. Now, I understand, we're supposed to do about 45 minutes. We already crossed over. Now, anything, Albert, you want to, final closing, anything you want to share it at this point?
Look, probably not much more than what I've mentioned already. But I think at this point in time, keeping on top of your financial records and making sure you've got everything up to date is imperative. Not only just to know where your business is going, it's so that you can, make sure you're ready to be agile and flexible with the changing circumstances that we're facing. So if you keep on top of that side, you're much better prepared if you need to apply for a grant, or you need to restructure your finances, or do any of those, or even just, I shouldn't say just, but do budgeting and planning and how you're going to get the business back on its feet and going well.
You bet. You bet. Thank you once again, Albert, and to you, the viewers. I mean, obviously, it's almost 8:30, well over 8:30, and I hope it's been a value to you. And this is the way, as a trusted dental advisor, how we helping dental practices, or practice owners, or dental practice professionals to stand in their feet in this uncertain time. So stay well and safe, and bye for now.
Okay. Thank you.